Okay.
There it is.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Women for Humanity. As you know, all my guests are very special because they are all extraordinary in each their field. Outstanding women who all fight for making this planet a better place to stay. However, today, I'm especially excited to welcome my guest because not only is she also an outstanding woman, but she's also something unusual, so unusual as an astronaut, an aquanaut, an artist, and the founding director of the Spacesuit Art Foundation, who has the purpose to heal sick children through art therapy. As a NASA astronaut and aquanaut, Nicole Stott has explored from the heights of outer space to the depths of our oceans. As an artist and now retired from NASA, Nicole combines the spaceflight experience and artwork to inspire creative thinking about solutions to our planetary challenges, to raise awareness of the surprising interplay between science and art, and to promote the amazing work being done every day in space to improve life right here on Earth. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to talk to, and I think everybody who is going to talk to an astronaut is yes, excited. And furthermore, you're an amazing woman. I think you are a real role model for all of us because with your journey, you really have taught us, you teach us how, with human spirit and hard work, everyone can achieve their goals. So that is, thank you for that. Being a
that's my pleasure too. That's true. I'm hopeful that happens in some ways, but you know.
Yeah, it's okay. So actually, we are here to talk about your foundation. But before we do that, let's just go get to know you a little bit better and what inspired you to create your foundation, of course. What is the most important thing that people should know about you?
Oh my gosh. Wow. I think, I think mom is one of the most important things, that, and a lot of times people tend to focus so much on the astronaut, aquanaut, other, that kind of thing, that they don't think about this other side of women, and which I think is kind of the whole of us. And I consider my most important role as a mom. And it's why, whether it's the foundation or the work that I did in space, even traveling to space, why it was important to me is I think that ultimately it was associated with hopefully a better life for my son.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would say is that I almost doubted myself out of the greatest opportunities that were out there for me, just by thinking that something like astronaut was only something other special people get to do, and not even considering applying for a long time. So two different kinds of things. But
what made you apply then? What was it, your son? How old is he now, your son?
He's 18 now, and he was 7 when I flew the first time, and he wasn't born yet when I was selected to be an astronaut. So yeah, but I think just in terms of applying in general, I had been working as a NASA engineer at the Kennedy Space Center here in Florida for, I don't know, 8 to 10. It was about 8 of the 10 years that I was there already, helping get space shuttles ready to fly and get them ready for crews to go fly in space. And I started to realize that, an astronaut's job, 99.9% of it is not flying in space. It's down here on Earth.
Yeah.
And probably 80% of that was a lot like what I was already doing. And so that encouraged me to at least think about it, because I had really thought, wow, astronaut, that's something only special people get to do. Why would they ever pick me? And I'd watched the moon landing when I was a kid. So I had always had that kind of in me, just thinking about it as this really cool thing that human beings do. I think even at 6 years old, you realize that's an extraordinary kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the thing that ultimately got me just to even pick up the pen and fill out the application was speaking to people that I considered to be my mentors at NASA, and them doing nothing more really than encouraging me to pick up the pen, which was the one thing I had control of. And honestly, I don't think on my own I would have done it without their support.
But you are a special person.
Yeah, well, we all are. There's
You are.
something about every single one of
It's
us in
true.
some way
Yeah,
or another.
yeah,
That just happened to be, I think I kind of found my thing. I found, out of all the stuff I'd been interested in growing up and through my work, it was like, wow, that's something that
yeah.
could be really interesting. I could make a positive impact on things if I do this job. And I loved what I was doing already too. So if I never got selected, I think, life would not have been over. I'd have
Yeah.
been totally happy doing that as well.
Oh, that's great. Um, how would you think your son would describe you just with 3 words? Now we talk about him.
3 words that he would use. Oh, I don't know. A little wacky, maybe. Fun. I think he would
Yeah,
say that I'm fun, and
courageous?
uh,
No?
I don't know. Maybe. Um, uh, I don't know. I hope that he'd say caring, loving, that kind of
Yeah.
thing too. I think if there's a fourth word, he might say uh, controlling as well. But that's what I think teenagers say about their parents all the time.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think he's not alone.
Yeah.
So let's talk about you as a young girl a little bit. Where did you grow up, and did you already have a dream of conquering space when you when you were a child? I know you love
I grew,
flying.
yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up actually right up the road from where I'm living now. We had been 20 years in Houston with the astronaut corps and came back to Florida. I grew up in a place called Clearwater, Florida, on the west coast of Florida, right on the Gulf Coast. Beautiful little town. And yeah, I think growing up, the thing that inspired me or perhaps impacted me the most really was, having parents that shared what they loved with me.
Yeah.
And at that point, I didn't really realize that was going on. I hope that's what's going on with Roman, with my son too, is that he gets it later that, that we tried to really share what we love with him so he could figure out what he likes.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that happened for me. My mom is a very creative person. She is a nurse. And if I was going to get to a ballet lesson or to an art class or any of those softball practice, it was because of her. My dad liked building and flying small airplanes as a hobby. Small yet big enough that we could fly in them. And so as a family, we spent a lot of time out at the local airport. And I think that's really where the whole passion for flying got in my blood, wanting to know how things fly more than just flying in them. And that led me to study aeronautical engineering at university, to then figure out, man, if you want to know how airplanes fly, why would you not want to know how rocket ships fly? And Kennedy Space Center was right down the road. And at that point, as I was graduating from high school, especially, they were getting ready to fly the space shuttle for the first time. And that was really exciting to me. And I thought, man, if I can work doing this thing that has to do with flying, why would I not want to work
Yeah.
on the most incredible flying machine that's out there, which was the space shuttle?
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. It seems so. When you talk about it, it sounds like just like everyone else who likes something and then just get a job. I grew up with parents who had the clothes shops, and I had my own fashion shops afterwards because I loved it. And I got that's so. But for us who are not in the engineering or in space space business, it sounds very. As you would say it before, for special people. And it probably also is, but it's, of course, it's, as you say, if you grow up with people, with parents loving it and giving you this love, that it would just be a normal part of your daily life.
Yeah, I still pinch myself though, I have to say. I mean, I pinch myself every day to think, Nikki, you flew in space twice, you flew on these airplanes, you did these things in space. It still is it is incredible to me that this happened, right? But I do want to encourage people to, like what you just said with with your parents, what you discovered really through that. And it might have been something totally different that you figured out. But you discovered what, really you were curious about, what you were excited about. And I think that when we open ourselves up to that, the opportunities open up as well. The people that we meet that, could lift us up and support us in, what we're excited about. And that's what I look back on now and am most thankful for, is that, by allowing myself to think that it could even be possible, people want to come in and help you make it happen as well. So, I mean, I know I didn't do any of that on my own. The people that encouraged me to pick up the pen, the one thing I could have done on my own and wouldn't have. And then those same people and others that kept just encouraging me along the way. That's really significant.
But you are the one who made you come all the way, though. You did the education.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I had to pick up the pen. I mean, there's things that we have to do. You can't just sit back and wait for somebody else to do it for you.
No,
it's challenging, and I mean, I think about what I chose to do at university, aeronautical engineering. When I was getting ready to graduate from high school, all I knew was that I wanted to pursue this "how do you figure out how airplanes fly" thing. And somebody told me about aeronautical engineering. I didn't know anything about aeronautical engineering. If somebody had told me how difficult it was, I might not. I mean, honestly, I might not have been, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do that then. But sometimes you just got to have to jump into it too,
What do you think you would have done if you didn't take that path?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I would have flown or done something related to flying in a different way. I have to, when you mentioned the fashion thing, and I mean, to look at me, you would not, fashion is not something that stands out when you look at Nicole Stott. But I will say that, I don't know if you guys had this too. In the US, we had these little, assessments we would do in school, throughout school. And it would kind of give you a sense of what you might do when you're older, the kinds of things you maybe should be interested in. And I remember at one point, it was like fashion merchandising is what came up as one of the things. And when I think back on it now, when I go back, like all of my girlfriends, we all had something like that. There was always something like that. There wasn't anything like, oh, you might want to do engineering, or you might want to do it always what was something like that. And I think for myself, man, that's probably the farthest thing from what I would have thought of. Although now with all the art and that, that kind of stuff going on, I could see going back and doing something like that maybe. But it just seemed so different to what, to what I've actually done.
Yeah. Did the boys get the questions like engineering? On those.
Yeah, I mean, it all seemed to be, that's the thing. It all seemed to, I think in my mom and our parents' time, and my mom, I remember she's like, well, kind of there was two paths, nursing or teaching, that those were the kind of the two things that if you did something different, that is what it would be. And I kind of felt like that's what was happening with these forums, as they were looking at, okay, what are women doing now that, that would be the choices we'd put down for Nicole. And it wasn't really opened up that much, even in 1980. And yet I think about something like fashion merchandising, and what you've done and how your career has evolved through that love you had for fashion. And there's just this blend of creativity and innovation and, the same kinds of things that come together with engineering. I mean, that you have, like, using your whole brain to find solutions to things. And so maybe it's not so different.
Perhaps not. And you know what? It has nothing to do with that, but I would like to talk to you about it just briefly. I read an article the other day with the question, what do you want to be? What do you want to be when you get old? And actually, I was thinking, everybody asks you, what do you want to do when you get grown up? That's what we ask. What do you want to do when you become old? And I think it was such a great question, because we are so many of us, we are not old. Still not
we're not old.
I don't feel my old, I don't feel old, but I mean,
it's like 60, it's the new 30, right? Yeah.
For the 20s or 30 years old, we are old, we have to admit it. But there's so many things to do when you get older, and you don't think about when you're young. So it was just a parenthesis. I thought it was such a great question. What do you?
It is, yeah. Happy should be part of that.
Yeah.
Active would be good,
active,
still able to
exactly move. Yeah.
And and using it for good, being happy and active in some good way. Yeah, that would be.
Yeah. Okay, Nicole, you have been in space 2 times.
Yes.
That in itself is amazing. Could you just talk a little about the links, what you were doing there, some happy moments, some challenges, and what was your favorite part of being up there?
Everything. That's the most difficult question. What was your favorite part thing? Well, yeah, I mean, I was really fortunate. I flew to space twice, both times on the space shuttle. My first flight, which was now, oh my gosh, 11 years ago, maybe even more. It was 2009, end of 2009. And I flew up to the space station on the Space Shuttle Discovery. They dropped me off, and I spent a little more than 3 months there with the crews of what we called Expeditions 20 and 21. And then I came home with the Space Shuttle Atlantis a little over 3 months later. And then about a year and a half later, I flew on the final flight of the Space Shuttle Discovery, which was again to the International Space Station, but we were only there for about 2 weeks, which I can tell you is, I won't complain about that length of time, but it was not long enough. I mean, my commander literally had to pull my clawing hands off the hatch to get me, get me back in the shuttle to come home. It's such a special place up there. And one of the really, really fun, interesting things about the way we work in space on the space station right now is that every day is different. I mean, every day is a mix of science and research, of maintenance of the space station, of working with our crew to develop the plans for the upcoming time frame, working with the folks on the ground. Outreach like this to people on Earth. And then, of course, we have a little free time. So I was able to paint while I was in space and speak to my family. The communication is really very good, so I could speak to my family and friends. But I got to do a spacewalk, which was about 6.5 hours outside in a suit that kind of looked like this, but was all white. And that was a pretty amazing experience. I think one of the words that we can use to describe spaceflight is surreal. And there just doesn't seem like it could be real that we can do things like this. And to go out on a spacewalk is probably the surrealist of the surreal. In your own little personal spaceship out there crawling around on the outside of the station, and just experiencing it again from a whole new perspective. And
is it scary to go out there in
we do all this training that's just like launch and flying in the rockets and all that. We do all of this training that has to do with everything that can go wrong, or that we think we know can go wrong. And so I think as a crew and as an individual, you feel prepared as much as humanly possible for those things. I think you don't deny that there's, significant risk associated with it all. But in that, you're balancing out, the good that'll come from it. Like as a mom of a 7-year-old on my first flight, I would not have strapped into that rocket if I didn't think there was going to be something better to come from it for him. And I think well, I could maybe say 99.9% of the astronauts would say that they don't just fly to space for the adventure. So, in answer to your question, I don't think I was afraid, but I do believe I was totally respectful of where I was. I understood that, I needed to be deliberate and diligent and aware of what was going on in order to, minimize that risk as much as I possibly could. I think you're more excited and
I can
anxious
imagine. Yeah.
just about, what's it going to feel like? How is it going to be different to the training that I did? That kind of thing, the real, like, actual human doing it, part of it. But yeah.
It must be, of course, completely fantastic to have an experience like that. But when you come back, do you have kind of a emptiness in you, or are you just so grateful that you had the experience?
I think, the word you just used, grateful, I think that is exactly what, for me, I can't speak for others. I know a lot of people do feel the same way, but I think that's the word, that's like there. It's like, wow, why did I get to do this? How did I get to do this? I am so thankful to have had that experience of doing the work we were doing, of being there with this international partnership that's been in place as part of the space station program for over 20 years, 5 international space agencies, over 15 countries working peacefully and successfully together, on things that are all ultimately about improving life on Earth. I mean, how awesome is that?
Yeah.
To be in this station that, this mechanical life support system that we built to mimic what Earth does for us naturally, to understand our planet better because of that. And then I think, to have been there with my crewmates and have the opportunity, like, really to put our faces in that window and look out and see Earth and understand that, these simple things like, oh my gosh, we live on a planet. We know that, right? But we just don't think about it very often.
No.
And that's a really compelling thing. And I absolutely don't feel empty. I feel like filled up to the point where it's like, what do I do with it? How do I take
Yeah.
advantage of this fullness, of this
Yeah.
thankfulness, and apply it in some way that's, that continues, like this mission of using it for, for something else that's even better, perhaps.
And that's what you have done now with your Space for Art foundation. I just have to see if I have. No, we also have just to touch the Aquanaut and your underwater experience.
Yeah.
That was also something completely. You were one of. It took 18 days. You lived under the
Yeah.
water. And what
Yeah.
did you do the same things as you did in space?
A
Under.
lot, a lot like it. It's very much a mission of its own. We're not just going down there and hanging out and diving for 18 days. It's not just a dive trip. I mean, it really and truly mirrors as best as you possibly can, the activities, the protocols, the all of it, to how you would live and work in space.
Okay.
It's absolute, to me, it was the best overall training, for that. But what I love about it is that I mean, we had real science we were doing. We were, doing things in support of the space missions that were coming up. I think that was really important. I don't think anybody in any role wants to just have make work. I mean, you want to be doing something worthwhile.
Yeah.
And then it's this like school bus sized habitat that sits at 60 feet underwater off the coast of Key Largo, Florida. It's the only one like it on the planet, this undersea laboratory. And it is a real extreme environment. So just like in space, if something happens, if there's an emergency, you have to deal with it right there, because of the way our bodies, get saturated with nitrogen when you dive and everything. Once you're down for over an hour, you can't just swim to the surface to escape a problem, at the habitat. So you have to deal with it there, and that's huge because you can't just hop in your spaceship and come home anytime you want from the space station either. So, but let me tell you, we joke that when you go and do one of these Aquarius missions, these habitat missions, we joke that we go and live and work in inner space so that we can know how to live and work together in outer space. And it's just it's like the planet is surrounding you, the creatures, the life that lives on that reef. It's like they're looking in the window at us like, okay, who's in the aquarium today, who's the new little visitor, to our world. And makes you realize there's a lot going on that we just
Yeah.
don't, but probably should be paying attention to a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's still missions in that underwater. It's ongoing.
There are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just NASA that does this. There's other research agencies, and the Navy even uses it for their science and development of new equipment and things. And it's an incredible place, a really incredible place. Yeah.
Imagine to have been out where nobody have been, or very few, because you're only about 600 people who have been in space, right?
Mm-hmm.
About 65 women.
Yeah, I think so now. I
read about it, and I think you are the 10th woman to have been walking in space.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's so weird. These things happen, and then you're like, "Oh, that's cool. I was the 10th woman to do it." That's kind of neat. And I know the first woman, and she's so cool, and Kathy Sullivan, and she, so you think these people it's a really small community. And internationally, it's a small community. So we all know each other pretty well.
You get together and then talk about your experiences.
We do. There's all kinds of different forums. And within the NASA Astronaut Office, we have every 2 years, there's a reunion. So anyone that's still alive, if they want to, they come. And, and so you at least have met people before. You might not know everybody really well, but it's again a small enough community, even internationally, that you could reach out to each other for things. And that's nice.
That's great. Beautiful. You're also, Nicole, a passionate painter. Did you start to paint before you went to space? Because you're the first to have been painting with watercolor in space. It seems a little bit unreal, I think.
Yes, it is. Seriously, it does. Yeah.
What is? It's only bubbles, right?
Yeah. Everything is different, I think, when you're living in this microgravity environment. But I did all, like I said, my mom, she did artsy craftsy things when we were growing up, back in the day, that was like macrame and pottery and hooked rugs and things. So I did that. And I always liked working on stuff, building things, woodworking and painting and things. And so, but I never trained. I never went to school for art or anything. I just enjoyed it. And so, I had done that before flying in space. Okay. One of my friends who helps us get ready with what we take to space with us, the kinds of things, our clothes, besides what is officially given to us, encouraged me to take something that I enjoy doing down here on Earth. And so that's why I brought this tiny little watercolor kit. And I chose watercolors only because I knew they would probably be the easiest to clean up. They would be the least toxic of anything. I would probably get approval to take them. And I really didn't think about the process of painting with them before I got there. But like you said, it's like bubbles, water floats in little balls. And so I was dipping my brush into balls of floating water versus we don't have cups of water to dip your brush into. There's no plein air painting. So I couldn't sit in front of the window and paint what I was seeing out the window, because that's, at 5 miles a second, that's gone before you could get the brush to the paper. And it was all just this process of being organized and thinking about things a little bit differently. And even the painting itself, like there would be this floating ball of colored water, on the end of the brush that I found I was like looking at a lot. But if I actually touched the brush to the paper, the whole ball of water, of colored water would get sucked in. So, I was trying to paint this little chain of islands that I'd taken a picture of and seen on Earth.
Yeah.
And all I was getting was these blobs of color. So I discovered that instead of touching the brush, you had to just kind of stay at a distance and drag the ball of colored
Oh,
water along the paper. And, so it's just like, okay, the technique's a little different than, what you
how
would
you
do
made
on
the
Earth.
weight. That's how you made the
Yeah, and
weight.
that's why I did the weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually a print of it back there. But, and for somebody to look at, they're like, oh, what child drew this thing, but for me, now like the art, it's not about somebody liking my artwork or
No.
not, right? It's about them looking at it and engaging with it, and then me being able to share the backstory, right? Like, oh, well, this is based on an image I took from space. And did you know we have this thing called the International Space Station, and this partnership of 15 countries is working there, and here's what we're doing up there that's all about improving life on Earth. And you can track the station and see it flying over you, and they end up being the people, even if they don't like my art, that walk away
Yeah.
with the app on their phone to see when the station is flying away, and they become interested. And that's what's important to me with with my own personal
Yeah,
artwork.
I actually learned a lot from starting to get interested in your art and the whole mission about the station. I wasn't
Yeah.
aware that everything you do up there, it's actually for the good for the planet to make it even better here.
Isn't it cool? I
Yeah.
mean, and that's been true of space exploration since the beginning, really. There's this tendency to think that, oh, we're just trying to figure out how to get further away from Earth. We're trying to separate ourselves. We're trying to go live on Mars and not think about Earth anymore or something. When in reality, everything that we do technology wise to even get ourselves there in one way or another helps us. I mean, we're doing this today
Yeah. Yeah.
because of the technology that we use to communicate from space. Just the way we live our lives is just surrounded by the benefits of space exploration.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I love it that way. That's why it was important to me to be part of it, I think, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I really learned a lot from starting to.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. So, Nicole, you're also here to talk about your foundation, because that is
Yes.
what Women for Humanity is about. It's all the good things we do for our planet and the other
Yes.
people, the oceans, the whatever. So, tell us a little bit about your foundation. What is it? What is the mission and your vision about it, and your projects and everything that comes to your mind?
Okay. Well, the mission, the kind of our mission statement, or our like one-liner that we are using to try and sum it up now, is that we're uniting a planetary community of children through the awe and wonder of space exploration and the healing power of art. And it sounds kind of simple, but I think there's real power in it. I mean, I've discovered for myself how therapeutic art and meditation and creative things are for me personally.
Yeah.
And I've witnessed through the projects, like working with kids on projects like this art spacesuit, and kids that typically are in places that you really hope are the worst thing they're ever going to have to go through in their life. And you want to help them get through that, right? Pediatric cancer centers, refugee centers, places like this. And I've seen how just talking about space exploration, getting kids thinking about that, having them create something that's based on that inspiration, I think it's really a transcendent experience for them. You see them sitting up straighter. They're talking to the other kids and to you about, not about the experience they're having in the hospital directly, but about their future and what they're thinking about, and comparing even the way that astronauts live and work in space to that experience they're having in the hospital. But thinking about it in a positive, constructive way, that are ideas I might not have ever even considered myself. Um, and it's become my mission. It's really, really important to me that we continue to engage these children in a way that allows them to think about their future. And um, I don't know, I've just found through these projects like the art spacesuits that we've been doing, that's what we started with. We started in one hospital in Houston with kids in a pediatric cancer center, creating these art suits from each of the individual pieces of artwork.
Yeah.
And our actual spacesuit company that makes our real spacesuits, the one that I went and did my spacewalk in, have volunteered with us since the very beginning to quilt them together into these beautiful suits. Several of the suits have flown to the station.
Yeah.
And so the kids have gotten to see, you know, their art come together in these spacesuits. Check out the website if you haven't. You can see that we have some videos of the crew members wearing the suits in there.
And also that you name them, you've given them names.
Yes,
I think that's such
yes.
a great idea, because you can relate to it even as a child.
Yeah. And each of them are supposed to, I mean, they're supposed to consider somehow what these kids are going through and what, you know, how it can encourage them for their future and their families as well. Yeah, our suits have been named like Hope and Courage and Unity. And this suit is named Exploration as an ambassador for Earth, and Victory. And there's a suit that's actually getting ready to fly to the space station on April 9th that's called Dreamer. It's one that we've done with our Russian partners. It's really beautiful. I can't wait to see it up there. And we're working on an art spacesuit now called Beyond that we're creating. Hopefully we have every appendage is crossed. We have our fingers crossed that we'll get at least one piece of artwork from at least one child in every country on the planet.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, really excited. And we've been invited to bring the Beyond Art Spacesuit to the COP26 event in Glasgow in November. And, you know, with a focus on, you know, something else that we've always looked at that we encourage the kids to think about is this idea of personal health and planetary health, how those things are connected. And we want these kids living like earthlings, right?
I know. How do you reach out to refugees? And now if you want to have a child from each country in the world, where do you find them? Because it's not only hospitals anymore that you.
No, it's not. And so, and especially for the Beyond suit, with all that's been going on this last year with the COVID and the pandemic, and kids everywhere are isolated in a way that they've never been before, right? And so, so we're not limiting just to hospitals and refugee centers now. The way that we've primarily done it, and even from the beginning, has just been through our own personal contacts, right? And that's where my astronaut colleagues have been huge. You know, there are astronauts and cosmonauts from all over the world. So reaching out to them or through the space agencies, reaching out through the hospital contacts that we've had before, continuing to engage them on our projects. And then people just introducing us to people that introduce us to people. And it's wonderful. Like, I feel like now with you and this, there's serendipity, I think, in all of these introductions that we have. And like, I'm going to be like, okay, New Guinea, we need New Guinea. So we'll do it. But I mean, that's, you know, I mean, and anyone we've reached out to, you see something like this, you realize what's going on with the kids, and people want to be involved.
Yeah.
And that makes us feel, it's really kind of this reinforcement that we're doing a good thing. We're doing the right thing with the work. And you asked about our vision for it too. You know, we will always, our focus, I think, will always be on these projects, what we call clinical projects, actively engaged with the kids, creating something.
Yeah.
But we want to be able to facilitate like fellowships, scholarships for artists that are interested in applying their artwork to, or their creativity to something therapeutic as well. And we think by doing that opens up like meaningful pathways for artists to, you know, to have a career you know, as well, to find ways for them to have a livelihood through their art. And then we also want to get more actively involved with the research that goes along with art and healing, kind of a measure of um, you
Yeah.
know, really to show people the value of this kind of approach
Yeah.
with kids.
If someone who listen to this say, but I have a good connection with my local hospital or children hospital, is it possible for people to actually like do a franchise or go and ask the hospital to make the children paint or draw and to send it to you? Is it something that you encourage people to do to help you wherever they are in the world?
Yeah, and that's how it's actually worked. Is we end up with a contact at a hospital, we liaise with them in a way that, you know, a little over a year ago, we actually could make visits to hospitals too. I have done some things where we'll, you know, virtually, you know, like I can do something with the kids in the hospital, you know, put the blue jacket on as the astronaut and just speak to them for a little while they're painting, if the hospital's open to that. Um, but we try to engage in whatever way we can. And for the Beyond project, we've tried to make it as simple as we possibly can. So the kids can do their artwork. All we need is a picture of it, and then we'll be printing it out to create the suit this time. So it's is no special, you know, equipment or supplies are required, and we just need the picture. But we are open to, you know, to contacts in different places. We're trying to maintain this you know, this list, this network of the organizations and hospitals that we work with, because we find they want to continue to work with us too.
Yeah. How many
Yeah.
drawings do you need for a space suit? How many drawings?
Well, you know, there's a few hundred on this one,
Okay.
and you know, what are there? There's like 197, 198 countries on the planet, or I guess nation states, whatever. If we only got one, we could make a suit out of that from each country. We're taking what we get from the
Yeah.
different
Okay.
places now, and because we're printing it out this time, we can print things bigger or smaller and get whatever we get, we can incorporate
Yeah.
in some way. Yeah.
Can I ask,
Yeah.
what does it cost to make a space suit like that?
You know, I don't know.
Okay.
And I don't know because, like I said, the real ones, I don't even know the number for the
No.
real ones, quite honestly. We would probably don't want to know the number for the real ones. But these suits, I don't know the number. And that's because our partners at ILC Dover, the spacesuit company, they just do it for us. They've
Great.
there's two or three employees there in particular that have worked on the suits. And I mean, they've taken their personal time to do it. And the company's been very generous with their time as well.
Yeah.
And so it's nice because we're not even having to think about
Yeah.
how much it costs
Yeah.
to do it.
So that's
Very
not what
thankful.
that's not what you do when you ask for donations. That's not to cover the suits. Your donations, if people
No.
want to donate to you, it's for therapy at the hospital. So what do they go for?
It's been for a couple different things. In the beginning, it was primarily for, we were trying to go every place that we did the work. We were trying to actually travel there to do that, and we realized quickly that that's probably not the best way for us to be. You know, just to always be fundraising for
Yeah.
travel funds. We know we'll always need that in one way or another, but our focus more is now on the fundraising for the fellowship kind of and scholarship grant activities that we are starting to do. We've done a couple of those so far with different organizations. We have a couple of universities that were I can't say right now, but that we're looking forward to announcing those relationships with as well coming up. And then the other side of it is partnering with different groups that are developing research tools that are not invasive in any way. And I can, as an example, I can say like virtual reality, where the kids just love, you
Yeah.
know, that they get it and they love experiencing these things. Um, and then we can help build in the analytics there that help measure what's going on as the child's using that. But they don't, and we don't ever want them to feel like they're going into another test at the
No.
hospital. We don't ever want to wire them up with anything to where the art sessions feel like another hospital thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where our fundraising is focused right now, is on the fellowship grant side of things and on the research side of things as well.
Okay. When you work with children in refugee or children refugees, so are you working with local organizations like, I don't know, Red Cross or something to get to these children, or how do you get in touch with them?
Yeah, and that's again just been through contacts that we've made. There's the two that we've actually, there's been three. Uh, One in Paris that, of course, works with refugees coming from all different places, and we just facilitated through that center in Paris, and they do like such amazing like theater work and other projects that are incredible. There's a group in the Washington D.C. area called Lutheran Services that is a wonderful organization that support refugee activities, and we've been able to engage with them pretty routinely. And they have kind of local community activities that they pull together, and then um, through other foundations, we were able to reach a group in Mozambique as well, and with kids. And I mean, just interesting ties, like how the embassy of Ireland and like the Clinton Foundation and other groups have come together already to support the activities at that center. And then through a friend of ours that was going there to volunteer, she's like, oh, we could work with kids here. And then it just happens. And I love that it doesn't have to be us physically there doing it, right? It's encouraging places too that may not have ever used art before,
Yeah. Yeah.
to use art with the kids. And then also the space thing, the space exploration theme always seems to make it like
Yeah.
even more exciting, for them. But it's really been kind of informal relationships that just have turned into really beautiful things for us.
Have you tried to measure how it helps the children actually going through treatments, and how it really helps them to move forward, to conquer their fears and their pain? And have you had contact with
Yeah,
them?
we've done that pretty qualitatively at this point. I mean, and that's why we feel like supporting, facilitating, participating in kind of the research side of this is going to be really, really valuable. But I tell you, I don't know how anybody can walk into one of these rooms with these kids doing this and not see just the positive energy that's coming from it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched, I don't know how many times children, their parent, they're like, we don't want to go paint. We want to go back to our room and go to bed, just rest. And their parents are bringing them in, and they'll sit there for a minute like, oh, I don't want to be here. And the next thing you know, I mean, really, it's like this power comes, this energy comes, and they just become engaged, and it's almost like they're not in that place anymore. And you watch it happening. And I want to know, how do we measure that? How do we
Yeah.
better understand that in a way so that we can encourage more of these kinds of things to happen for them?
Yeah, it's amazing what it does.
Yeah.
You paint, I paint, and I know how it is to stand in your little bubble and be completely
Yeah.
um, occupied by only that, and how
Yeah.
good it feels. And we see art therapy for Alzheimer patients and
Mm-hmm.
all kinds. It must
Yeah.
have a really, really great impact on us.
Yeah. I think it does. I think there's so many things like that we tend to like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, that are really, really compelling and our wellness, the way we treat each other, the way we treat the planet. I think it's really, really powerful that way. And you can learn something too while you're doing it. We always like to think that the kids are learning something too, about themselves, about
Yes.
space, about Earth, their relationship with it.
It's a
We
great
always try.
combination.
Yeah,
Unusual and great combination, I think
yeah,
you found.
yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about your own artist career? You have time to paint?
Well, I just finished writing my book, so that was like all encompassing for a little bit, and I'm really thankful. I don't have it right here. I do these little like necklaces. They're kind of the easiest thing to do, just create something based on a Bahamas picture that I took from space or something. And but I'll tell you, I am so thankful whenever I do have the opportunity to just move the computer out of the way, set up the paints, and really get into that. And I don't know how you feel. It's like meditative almost.
Yeah, yeah,
It is a transcendent kind of thing. It's like the
yeah,
weight gets lifted, you just can like engage yourself in it completely. And yeah, I love it. I love it. So hopefully more time for that coming up. But you know what? As I see these suits coming in, any day that I get an email from somebody sending me kids art from somewhere, I'm just like, oh my gosh, look at this, and it's going to look so cool, as part of the suit. And oh, we got this country, can check it off the list, and those kids are representing, the planet that way now. That really
yeah,
um, is so. I don't know. It's so
yeah.
I don't know, it's helpful to me too. It is, and healthful, I think, to me as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah.
That
It's
phenomenon.
also amazing to start a movement like that, I think. And, in the beginning, you probably don't imagine that it can be so big, but think to have children from all over the world making
Yeah,
a drawing. That's amazing.
yeah.
With the good
And they get it, It's kind of like people would ask me before I was going to space, how does your son feel about you
Yeah,
flying in
yeah.
space and stuff? And, is he worried? And you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to talk about him
Oh,
being worried about this, But they understand. They really do understand kind of the full scope of it
yeah,
in a different way, maybe, but it's how they manage their feelings about it. And I think the same thing is true with, um, with the kids that we're working with on these suits. They understand that their little piece of art is going to be part of something bigger.
yeah,
It's These are kids that might not, like some kid in Ohio here in the States might not have even known about a country, Mozambique,
no,
and now they do,
yeah,
they
yeah,
understand that it's like, it's really, I think it's a good way for them to start feeling like they are crewmates, here on Spaceship Earth,
yeah.
and to grow up that feeling that way as well.
So when you receive all the drawings, would the child get an I don't know, an email from you with the spacesuit finished with the paintings on? Is it possible for you to do that?
Yeah, we try really hard to maintain, like, whoever was our contact,
Yes.
whoever like sent us the drawings.
Yeah.
We always try when the suit is complete to share how the art has come together. We're trying to come up with more and more creative ways to do that. And we realize a lot of I mean, some of these places where we get the art from the kids. I mean, they are really remote
Yeah.
places where I'm like, I still can't believe, that one of these is always available somehow, a phone to take a picture to send.
Yeah.
So we're always trying to figure out, how do we have that feedback? How do we show the kids, or at least the organization that helped facilitate it, what came from this too, and then encourage them to participate in the next project if they want to as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next project for you, what would that be? So now you have your
Well, we
book
need to get this
finished.
beyond. I mean, this beyond suit is like the
Yeah.
focus right now. And we're really fortunate to have some partners. There's one group called A Block Interactive Experiences. They're a group out of Germany and France that have been on board with us too, volunteering just their time and talent to create things for us that aren't like physical suits, but video and interactive experiences that are created from the kids' artwork as well. That allows us to not only share this with the kids in a different way, but also to make the public more aware. So for instance, when we go to Scotland in November, I mean, crossing fingers that we can actually physically go somewhere in November with the suit, and when we're part of this, climate change conference, and we're working there with a group called ActionAid International, and they are engaging with the folks that are running the Climate Crisis Film Festival there. And they're coming up with this whole experiential thing for the participants to like understand what is happening with climate change, right? And the suit is going to be a part of that. And our partners at A Block are going to be able to help create these experiences that allow the participants to experience these things that they might not be aware of anywhere else, that are happening on the planet. And that's kind of cool to see how Beyond, I think, is going to be this ambassador for for the kids for sure, and for the planet as well.
That's amazing. I have one last. No, I probably have a couple. For you. Do you have a motto that guides you along or have guided you in your life?
I think so, and I learned it. The phrasing of it came to life for me when I was working as an engineer at the Kennedy Space Center, like early on in my career as a NASA engineer. And through one of those mentors that encouraged me to pick up the pen and fill out the application. And it's, where's my little guy? Oh, he fell on the floor. I have this little astronaut that, are you still there?
Yeah. I don't know what happened.
I think we might've lost each other.
Yeah, I can hear you, Nicole. Just stop.
Because you completely froze up. I don't know. Maybe we had the Zoom.
I think I have an unstable internet connection.
Okay. Well, I'll shorten that up. One of my very favorite people on the planet, Jay Honeycutt. He was one of my very first bosses as a NASA engineer, like hero of the space program guy. And he had this motto that he shared with us as young engineers. It's very simple. It's here's how we can, not why we can't. And I say I have it with me in every place that I am, but it fell on the floor yesterday, so I'd have to go out and get it. But I have that on a little card in every office since then. And that to me is just like, it's going in believing there's a solution to any problem, no matter how challenging it is. And I think it just puts people in this mindset of, okay, we can do this, we can figure this out. And it doesn't mean that there won't be challenges with figuring it out. It's a totally different approach to, oh no, we can't do that because of this, or we can't do that, this whole negative way of going at it. And I mean, I think we got to the moon because we believed we can do it. And we said, okay, here's how we can do this, and we will, I believe, overcome these planetary challenges that we have by having that kind of approach as well. And it's why I'm so happy that we're going to be at that conference in November, because I think it just shows there are many different ways to communicate about the problems that we're having, but then more importantly, to really encourage the solutions to come to life for them as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I probably I have so many more questions to ask you, but at a time I also have to wrap up. Nicole, you do a lot of great things for other people. What can we do to help you?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, I would encourage people really to check out the work we're doing with the foundation. if they feel like they can be part of that, to please, please let us know. And right now, I'm so thankful to our team at with the foundation. I mean, there's four of us. We are, we're just. It's like the four of us came together and decided this was something we all want to do. Ian, I mean, he's the genius, artistic genius behind the suits. Lolly is an artist and just a really, when it comes to like the creative thinking about things and kind of the way we can be communicating with all the kids that participate. She's just awesome. David, who works with ILC Dover and has been on board since day one because he just passionately believes that this is worthwhile for these children going through this. And our supporters that I mentioned before, like A Block and others. I ask for you to check out the foundation because I really believe that these are human beings that people should know about, and what they've decided to support. And I know there will be ways for people to help us out as we grow, whatever that means, as we do more of these things.
Because you also have other projects. We didn't really discuss it, but you make exhibitions and you make postcards from space, postcards from space, and so you have different projects, not just the spacesuits.
Right, and that's where A Block has been really helpful too. Like, and Lolly is the genius behind this Postcards to Space project. She had done something where she brought together kids from, a couple different countries, and she had this beautiful display at Dulles Airport that I encountered as I was coming off one of these like walkway things, and I mean, I almost tripped like looking at this beautiful display she had done of these kids' artwork, and it was just so reminiscent to me of what we were doing with the spacesuits. And of course, this was before I met her. I had no idea who did this art installation at the airport, and through the power of social media, was able to find her, and we've been on this path ever since. But A Block, we did a version with the kids where we collected the art, and then they created this electronic like video compilation of the art that's just gorgeous and brings it all together. And we were able to send that video to the space station so the astronauts could watch the video. We videotaped the astronauts watching the video. They sent that back, and so the kids could see their art in space that way. It wasn't physically sent, but they could see it there. So stuff like that, and the exhibits. We just finished a summer exhibit here in Tampa at the Museum of Science and Industry, where we always try to build out as the focal point whatever the projects from the foundation are, and then we build out local community artists who do things that are kind of sciencey, or scientists that do art that you might not otherwise think of them doing art. And I always include some of our astronaut friends and scientist friends that from the space program and their artwork as well. And it's just kind of a cool way to see art and science coming together. And kids that come through, I kind of follow them around, and listen to them talking to their parents, and they'll comment like, "Oh, well, I didn't know you could do science and art." And it makes me so happy for them to figure out, you need to use your whole brain, to solve the world's most challenging problems. And so it's cool to see that. And and then writing a book, that was a big one recently, and so that's out for pre-order. And
how long time did it take you to write that? A couple of years?
Well, it was in work for a while, and then like the real deliberate effort was probably a little over a year of writing and working with my book coach on that. And I have a fantastic agent and publisher, and can't wait for it to physically get out on the bookshelves. That'll happen in October. But and it's not a memoir. It's not a memoir. It's more it's more really of the story of what we're doing in space right now on this space station with this international community, how we live and work together there on this mechanical life support system, and how we should be doing that same kind of thing down here on Earth together, and just the ways that we've done that we could apply down here, I think.
Beautiful. And with those words, I want to thank you for taking the time.
Thank you. I could talk to you all day.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a rambler. Did you see that? I could just ramble on forever. Yeah.
But it's so exciting, and I think you're doing a really wonderful thing. And I think the way that you demystify the space, and because you put for all of us, you are a very special person who has been through so many things that none of us will do. But through you, we can explore it. We can imagine how it could be to be in space, and you're still a very humble person, and to share your experiences. It's really nice. I'm very, very happy to have talked to you and to share your story with our community. And I really hope that everybody who sees it can find some way to help you. And if I can get some children from Papua New Guinea, where I have some
yes, please
send you some pictures or drawings, I will do that.
Yeah, I'm so thankful to you too for inviting me to participate this way and to really have the chance to talk about the work of the foundation and with these kids. I don't know, I found my next mission, which is wonderful, and I think there's real power in it too. It feels good.
Yeah, and you're sending out so much energy, good vibes. So it's nice. Thank you, Nicole.
Well, thank you.
I send you a big hug and a big kiss, and
back at you.
See you again another time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you were talking about the women, the women that you interview for this series, and how inspired you are by doing those interviews and sharing these stories. I have to believe that the women, because I am equally, if not more, inspired by having the conversation with you about learning about what you've done and how you came to doing this. And I've experienced these things. I'm going to lean over and let my dog out. Who's growling at me to let her. But equally inspired, by learning your story, right? That same kind of thing happens when I go into the hospital to paint with these kids. And I'll tell you, I've had, every time I do it, one of the hospital representatives will say to me, "Oh, Nicole, we're so excited to have you here today because the kids are going to be so inspired by what you've done as an astronaut, all this stuff." And I'm like, yeah, I really hope they are, because, we want them to be.
Yeah.
But there has not been a single time where I haven't walked out feeling, I think, more inspired than any one of those kids could ever feel about me, as an astronaut. Just the strength and courage and everything that I see in them and their families. And this one little girl I just ended up sitting next to in a painting session one time, 7 or 8 years old, maybe, little, this little hat on because she'd lost all her hair already to chemo and stuff. And, we're painting and talking about space, and, and at one point I've got this really great picture. She's pointing up and we're talking about being in space. And she just out of the blue says to me, "Miss Nicole, what you go through as an astronaut, that's got to be a lot like what I'm going through here in the hospital." And I get the, like, the, every time I think about it, because I'm like, wow, how is this 7-year-old? I mean, these are like beyond wisdom kind of, age wisdom kinds of things. And she just continues. She's like, "Yeah, you don't get to see your family and friends the same way. You don't get to go outside anytime you want. You have to eat all different kinds of food. Your body's changing. They're doing all kinds of tests on you, poking you all the time. And I think you even have, I think in space, there's radiation." And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, this child who's going through the worst thing you ever want her to experience in her entire life is comparing it to something I dreamed about doing, right?
Yeah.
And just so powerful. Yeah. And that was very early on for me in the work we were doing. Ian Sion had invited me to one of these sessions, and I was just like, this is it. That's where I discovered what my next mission in life needed to be. It's like, we need to just keep doing this. I don't care if we're making spacesuits or what we're doing. We need to keep working with these kids on this. And it's about them in this setting, thinking outside of that, thinking about things in another way, looking to their own future. But it also made me realize, like for astronauts, when we do travel to Mars someday, where, the farthest we've been so far is to the moon, 250,000 miles. That's a long way, but 250,000 miles.
Yeah.
But from that vantage point, you still have our home. You still have this like work of art that's our planet out the window, right?
Yeah.
When you go to Mars, which is like 35 million miles away, at some point, Earth will not look like Earth anymore. It'll be this little dot of light, maybe in your view. And that to me is going to be very different for us as human beings. And we're going to have to be very conscientious about keeping the human in human spaceflight, doing things, accommodating things like painting, art, music, food, the holodeck from Star Trek, like how do we give these crew members this experience that allows them to maintain this connection, which is exactly what that little girl described to me in the hospital about her own experience compared to being an astronaut. And that sealed it for me. That was, okay, Nicole, you know what you're doing now.
How beautiful to think like that from her, to be such
Yeah.
a young girl and then see the beauty and the challenge, of course, you have as an astronaut, but put herself or you in her place or her in your place. That's amazing.
Incredible to me.
That is amazing. Oh, well, I stop again.
Okay.